Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. We missed you guys. We hope you missed us. We've been just getting ready for the season and doing a bunch of stuff on the radio, but we're back for the Waiver Wire show here on Tuesdays to kind of be a addendum or just, I don't know, an extra piece of content to help you in navigating the Waiver Wire Cheat Sheet. Of course, my name is Alex Dunlap, here with the Trashman, who's taken over the Waiver Wire Cheat Sheet this year and who's overseeing it. Of course, it's something that we work on together, but Trashman came through with the first iteration of this thing. I thought it looked pretty good. We had some discussions to be had about the free agent budget bids and the some of the other things. But as always, just a reminder, these are all players we're discussing are less than 55% owned across the season-long space. So we'll be talking about some of these guys and also talking to you about players you might want to drop. If you have questions, we do this one live on YouTube so we can have people in the chat. If you have questions about players that you should be dropping at this point, put those in the chat. It'll come up here on my end and I'll mark them all down. And Trashman and I at the very end of the podcast, we'll go over those and we'll talk about whether it's cool to drop those guys or not. So Trashman, what the hell's going on, brother?
Not too much. Enjoying this fall weather in Austin, Texas.
Fall weather? Jesus, it's not fall weather yet. We got a reprieve of like 5 degrees and you're already celebrating?
I mean, it's jacket weather for me.
It's always jacket weather for you, Trash Man, because you have all those nice jackets.
It's always cool to wear a jacket.
Strange random women buy for you. Do you how's your family out of Beaumont doing with this tropical storm Nicholas? Is it hitting them hard? It looked like it was kind of taking a turn it was going heading towards Houston for a minute there, but it seems like it's going a little bit more northeast.
Yeah, I mean, no, this is mild compared to
it's child's play. Yeah.
We usually go through down there.
All right, so we just had the news come in that it looks like Raheem Mostert there was word that he was going to only miss about 8 weeks. Now it looks like Raheem Mostert is going to miss the season. It's going to be a 6-month recovery, he said via his Twitter. So he's out for the season. He's brokenhearted. I'm brokenhearted. Trash Man, we should just start by saying what the hell happened with the 49ers on there's a bunch of weird shit with these 49ers. The snap counts, touches, and targets tool is up now at rosterwatch.com. I went and looked at this thing, and it, to me, before we even get into the Mostert stuff and how we're going to play that, just as I go down here and go to the big tool at RosterWatch and look at the snap counts, touches, and targets, something that really stood out to me, Deebo Samuel, 12% of targets, or 12 targets on 84% of snaps. Of course, he went nuclear, 9 receptions for 189 and a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk only in on 47% of snaps and didn't even get targeted. Isn't that crazy? He was like, he didn't even start. And they said it's because they're kind of keeping him, he recently had the hamstring injury. But
right.
Jesus Christ, it was like.
Well, I heard too that Shanny likes Trent Sherfield a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trent Sherfield played ahead of did he play ahead of Brandon Ayuk? I mean, yeah, he played more snaps than Brandon Ayuk. He earned 3 targets. He got the touchdown. I mean, Trent Sherfield was a better play in fantasy than Brandon Ayuk last week. Just crazy. But, look, the big news from the 49ers is the running back situation. Raheem Mostert was looking great for 2 carries until he hurt his knee. Now he's out for the season. Elijah Mitchell, one of our favorites from University of Louisiana Lafayette, whatever you want to call it. It's just the Raging Cajuns. He was at the Senior Bowl, and a guy that we really liked there, and a dude who Byron drafted him in our kind of deep home league. So he's a guy that we're on and that we've been sort of talking about, but it was always sort of a long range play with how this San Francisco 49ers backfield generally, the way you generally project it to go. It's the best running back schedule on the whole entire season. It's the easiest schedule from a strength of schedule standpoint of just looking at opponents' projected win totals. It's a team that wants to run, so it was lining up like it was going to be a big deal for Raheem Mostert. We saw with what happened with Eli Mitchell in this game and JaMychal Hasty, this would have been a monster game for Raheem Mostert. It was everything that we were predicting. I mean, Jesus, he only had 2 touches and he was averaging 10 yards a touch. I mean, he just would have gone so big. But of course, Elijah Mitchell comes in there. He didn't get targeted, but he did get 19 carries for 104 and a touchdown on 64% of snaps. It was JaMychal Hasty who was seemingly used as more of the kind of 2-minute back and the pass receiving back. He was only in on 29% of snaps. He did get in the box as well, though. So now we have this issue that the other weird thing that happened with San Francisco is that Trey Sermon was a healthy scratch and a last-minute inactive. And you have really established reporters like Matt Barrows coming out and saying, he's inactive because they feel like the three best running backs are the running backs that they have active. Look, to me, that feels really weird because if you watched in the preseason, he was the one getting the work with the first groups. He was the one that has the higher draft pedigree than either Elijah Mitchell or certainly JaMychal Hasty, who I'm 99% sure was an undrafted free agent coming out of Baylor. To me, this really smelled like something where he might have had a shitty week at practice or fumbled, or could have been something disciplinary or something like that.
There's some subterfuge here.
Oh, wait, shit. Well, it's a Shanahan. So of course there's subterfuge, and now with the fact that Raheem Mostert, they're gonna have to settle into the fact this week that Raheem Mostert is done for the season, and we have Trey Sermon for a reason. He's a really good runner in outside zone. So my question is just with Elijah Mitchell, we don't want to. You got to go to RosterWatch.com to get the cheat sheet. We're not going to tell you the exact order of how everything is or our suggested bid amounts, but I've heard talk of 30% budget on Elijah Mitchell this week. I mean, we need to remember that Jeff Wilson will be back probably what week. He's only out for the first 6 weeks of the season. So he'll be back at some point. They love using him at the goal line. What if Trey Sermon kind of comes in and bites into what Elijah Mitchell is doing as sort of the primary ball carrier? It just sort of seems like that's the case.
There's a lot of what we do know is that they like Mitchell and they use him in the first game, to a great extent. And that's the one.
And we know that Mitchell's good. He's
Yeah,
good and he's fast and we like him. And during the Senior Bowl, he was the best running back there in the red zone drills. I mean, he's got a little bit of a nose for the end zone as well. He's really not that small. He's over 200 pounds. He had a good weigh in that way. So it looks like some people in the chat are saying that our boy Kip C and then also Larry Shiger just said that Kerryon Johnson just signed to the San Francisco practice squad too. So it's like, I mean, if you lost Raheem Mostert or if you're in a bad running back pickle or something like that, I feel like it's probably okay to spend up a little bit of your free agent, salary on one of these guys, on Elijah Mitchell, but I certainly wouldn't do it for JaMychal Hasty. I mean, and I think that that's a good just for this week. If you're using the Waiver Wire cheat sheet and you're just looking at this thing, most of the weeks we're going to tell you, if there really is a guy that you need to spend up for and that you really need to pay up for, and it's like, Jesus, go out and get this dude, make the aggressive bid. We'll tell you. But generally what we like to do is kind of mine more of the bottom of this sheet. Go get some of these guys that we can get for cheap this week, or maybe that we can get after if we're not in the league with free agent acquisition budgets where we can just wait till after the waivers run, and just pick them up in free agency, the guys that are at the bottom of the cheat sheet, and make sure that our waiver order stacks up for that one time where we really want to go all in and use that thing. I think that this Elijah Mitchell deal, just for me, Trashman, what if you had the number one waiver position in your league and it wasn't a fab budget? Would you blow it here on Eli Mitchell? I know it would depend on your roster, but just give yourself the average roster in fantasy football. Would you do it?
Yes. I mean, unless maybe I was a Ryan Fitzpatrick owner and and Jameis Winston was available. Otherwise, yeah, I'd blow that on Mitchell. I just feel like that. I feel like a guy like Mitch, I would definitely do it for Mitchell over a guy like Jameis. I know you're probably thrilled with Jameis. We'll talk about that in a second. You dirtball. All right. So that's where we are with Elijah Mitchell. For me, I couldn't go over 20% as far as, that's just, we're not going to tell you what we recommend for all these guys, but we'll give you guys that. Like Elijah Mitchell. But like you said, they have the best schedule.
I had for I mean,
they
like
also, but it's not just going to be Eli Mitchell.
I know,
but
we've seen in the past that this team can support 2 running backs.
Okay, but what if? Right, but I think we're staring down the barrel of at least a 3-headed monster, and possibly some weird 4-pronged attack whenever Jeff Wilson gets back.
Maybe. I mean,
look, man, I'm not saying don't go get Elijah Mitchell if you want him or you feel like you need running back depth. If you feel like you need running back depth, that's great. Go get Elijah Mitchell. We like him. He's a good player. The schedule is great. It's a good team, right? Pretty soon he could end up having a running quarterback that could, open up lanes for him with his threat of running the football. And Trey Lance. I mean, the 49ers are going to have to get the 49ers have to trade away Jimmy G at some point. They're hoping he looks good so they can trade him. I mean, they literally have to. So, that of course could go both ways for Eli.
They keep those attempts low.
Yeah,
they can manage that.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want him, go get him by all means. I would not be busting wouldn't be busting the free agent budget just yet. I think you could probably get him for $20 or $21 on a $100 budget.
See, I don't know, just because I don't think people are thinking about these other backs and situations. Maybe like,
hey, would you rather have? That's our job to help them think about it like this. Like, because what if somebody drops Trey Sermon? Then I'm swooping in and I'm getting Trey Sermon, and I'm not using waiver wire stuff on anybody else, right? I mean, that's what I'm doing. Trey Sermon's going to come in and he's going to. I mean, this feels to me like something where Trey Sermon pissed off Shanny during the week, and now Shanny's going to have to crawl back to him and say, "Sorry, we're going to get you active.
Yeah,
we're going to get you a lot of run this week."
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just Elijah Mitchell looked good, and Raheem Mostert was going to look good. I think a lot of running backs are going to look good this year versus the Lions. I'm super excited to roll out Aaron Jones against the Lions next week in DFS. Hopefully, he'll be super low owned, but judged on how bad the Packers looked in week 1. And what the hell, Trashman, just quickly, what the hell was that? Is this Aaron Rodgers subterfuge? Is he just trying to tank this team for?
I mean, we should have known that the Saints were going to have a pretty good defense.
Okay. What about?
I mean, and maybe Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. He was demanding Randall Cobb back and did absolutely nothing with him. Like I don't know. I think he's got some revisionist history going on there, and maybe he's not the player he once was. Too many TV commercials.
Urban Meyer's not the coach that he once was. I just don't know what the hell he's doing as head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Whenever you look at what happened with those guys, I think that a lot of people are going to be talking about Mark Ingram in this game. My question to you, Trash Man, is how often are the Jacksonville Jaguars how often are the Houston Texans going to be in a game script where they're beating up on a shitty team and they're able to give Mark Ingram how many touches did Mark Ingram get?
I think 26.
Did Mark Ingram get 26 touches?
He had 26 carries, I think.
Oh, my God. And a target. 26 for 85 and a touchdown, 46% of snaps. But you still had Rex Burkhead in for 13% of snaps. You still had Phillip Lindsay in for 26% of snaps. You still had David Johnson in for 28% of snaps. I mean, is it just – it's Mark Ingram behind a bad offensive line that's going to be in losing game scripts all the time. I think that I didn't think this told us that the Texans are going to be good. I think this told us that the Jaguars are a complete and epic disaster.
Jaguars are bad, but I think Tyrod Taylor-led teams generally are pretty decent. I mean, he's definitely. I mean, he never really did much for fantasy, but as a quarterback, Tyrod Taylor offenses are generally. He generally plays pretty mistake-free football. I think the Texans are going to be in better shape than maybe we think they are with Tyrod Taylor there.
Well, I mean, they're clearly going to be in better shape than a lot of people thought prior to. I mean, they had basically a 4.5 win total with juice on the under in all the Vegas sports books. Nobody thought that these assholes were going to be any good at all. They're already a quarter of the way to making it. They got 16 games left to play now. What about the Chargers? When we looked at that deal, you listed in the same sort of tier as guys like Kenny Gainwell and Tony Jones, I think they'll probably be pretty popular. Again, guys, this is not a week where we're going to be spending up. Most of these players, basically all of these players outside of Elijah Mitchell, are players that you're going to be adding as bench depth anyway. And so, it doesn't call for more than 5 to 10% of your salary if you're talking about a bench player, unless there are maybe a couple of these wide receivers that if you really kind of, let's say you took like Brandon Ayuk and Elijah Moore or something like that in your draft as your wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4. Well, then maybe you could spend up a little bit more on like a Sterling Shepard or somebody like that we'll talk about. This can be a veteran that'll help you out until those guys begin to come along, right? I think so. I think a lot of these. Let me just finish. Like, I don't think that any of these guys are immediate roster savers or immediate plug and play guys for contending types of rosters outside of Elijah Mitchell. He's a guy you're probably going to want to put in next week if you do get him on waivers. He'll be a guy that you'll say like, well, I don't know what's going to happen next week, but I'm going to get him in. I don't think if you pick, you listed Larry Roundtree. Tony Jones looks like he's still just a handcuff. Kenny Gainwell looks like he's probably still just a handcuff. He only played 36% of snaps.
He took all of Boston Scott's fire.
Well, how fired up are you to have Boston Scott on your fantasy football team?
I would have played him in the flex in a PPR league and a 12-team PPR potentially.
Not on a good team. You should be starting a good wide receiver or something like that over some idiot like Boston Scott. Kenny Gainwell is going to be all these guys, trash man, are not going to help you in the immediate near term.
I think Larry Roundtree could. I think he could get some goal line. We were talking about Justin Jackson. People were vying for Justin Jackson in drafts, and now because he's been replaced by Larry Roundtree effectively. We're talking about the guy who could get a lot of the goal line work for the Chargers. And James White, I think is an important player because we saw the Patriots' top 2 running backs fumble last week.
I don't consider Ramondre Stevenson one of the top 2 running backs.
Who's the top 2 there? Damian Harris
and James White.
I think of James White as a different kind of player. But
that's fine. But Ramondre Stevenson sucks.
They seem to like him going into the season, but with that fumble and with Damian, I'm really curious to see what Belichick does with Damian Harris. Just historically, he's going to keep feeding him the football. He's going to put Ramondre Stevenson in the doghouse. That's what's going to happen. I'm not worried about Damian Harris and one fumble. He didn't fumble on his second goddamn touch the way that Ramondre Stevenson did after his running backs coach was asked. He fumbled on a potentially game-winning drive.
Well, what are you going to do, Belichick? You going to bench all these assholes? You just put J.J. Taylor
That's what he's done in the past. He doesn't seem to care about who the player is.
You're not going to bench Damian Harris is a stud.
Yeah, I know that, but Belichick likes to send a message.
Well, look, if he's going to send a message to the whole entire league that he's just tanking
hasn't he done that by letting Tom Brady go?
This is cockamamie trash. All right, so let's go so you can find the list of running backs again over at rosterwatch.com. Let's talk about the wide receivers. I like how you put Sterling Shepard at the very top because he's probably, he's not the shiny new toy or anything like that, but he's so consistent. And he kind of looks like an alpha. Like he looks like a little alpha.
He's using him as his number 1 receiver.
Yeah, I didn't. I should have looked at the exact. That was a game that I was actually watching close in real time, and so I just noticed.
What was your interest in that game?
Oh, it was just one of the. I had Red Zone on, and then I had one TV on that had a 4 box, and it was just one of the games that was on. But I was watching it. I was interested in seeing mainly about I have some Saquon Barkley in a couple of leagues. I was just interested in seeing how he looked and everything. But Sterling Shepard, man, he looked definitely good, man. Definitely good for sure. I wanted to just pull out the snap counts tool just so I could see what percentage of snap. Like, do you remember from doing the tool off the top of your head what the snap percentage was? Let's see. It's 95% of snaps. 9 targets. Yeah. So, yeah. It's like, you worry about, you think to yourself, man, Sterling Shepard, he's kind of a slot guy. Sometimes those slot guys are only 60% snap dudes. That's not the case with 95% of snaps. So, I mean, they're featuring him outside. They're featuring him in the slot. Of course, you mentioned Tim Patrick. I like that. Rondale Moore was the one player that I had to move up that you had down in that second tier. I think he belongs in the same tier as the rest. You like Christian Kirk better as a pickup right now than Rondale Moore? I just can't do it.
You can't after, I mean,
nah,
2 touchdowns.
I can't do it. I still can't do it. I want Rondale.
I mean, Christian Kirk, I mean, his issue has always been
they both had 5 targets. Rondale Moore had 4 receptions. Christian Kirk had 5 receptions. The only deal with Rondale that you hate is a sub 30% snap share. But when he was
I feel like Rondale's the kind of player that you give the ball to in tight spaces and let him do work. Whereas Christian Kirk, you're going to air it out to him. And I think Christian Kirk.
But did you watch the game? Kyler aired it out to Rondale twice.
Kyler airs it out to everybody a little bit, but I mean,
give me Rondale. I know you love Christian Kirk. I know you and Mike Evans love watching him at his pro day. I'm over him though, man. I'm over him. I'm not biased like you, trash man. I want the sickest young players. Give me Rondale. So I got Rondale up in that same kind of tier. Any others in that wide receiver tier that you want to touch on? I think Tim Patrick's interesting. We have some people in the chat asking about KJ Hamler.
Tim Patrick was the Broncos' leading receiver last year.
Is that true? Only a trash man would know that stat. And do you know what, man? The Broncos offense now with Jerry Jeudy going down, the Broncos offense actually looks big. The Broncos kind of look like a little bit of a, dare I say, kind of a good team. Better than last year. The defense is good.
The defense was good last year too,
but not
as good. I mean, it's been one game.
Well, but they've just added so many pieces in the secondary. This year they're going to have both Von Miller and Bradley Chubb off the edge. Like it's going to be a good defensive unit for sure. And then the offense to me looked like they were operating just a little bit better. I mean, Melvin Gordon absolutely rising from the dead. Is anybody going to drop Javonte?
What do you mean drop him? They played almost equal snaps, right?
Yeah, but Javonte had just a bad game in the box score, and some of these they're going to be leagues where Javonte Williams gets dropped. We're going to talk. There are people who are asking in the chat.
I hope it's one of our leagues.
Well, it's not going to be one of our leagues. It won't be one of ours. Our leagues are too competitive. But I mean, there are drops people are asking about in the chat right now that make my jaw drop. We'll talk about those here in a second. Any of these other wide receivers that you want to talk about or specify? I always hate Devontae Parker. Let me just go look and see what he did though, so I can see why you stuck him here on the list. 83% of snaps, 7 targets, 81 yards. I guess that's fine. What do you like about Devontae? Did you just think that the Miami offense, the passing offense, just looked a little bit better than you would expected?
I mean, that is true. Tua did look a lot better than I expected him to look. And Devontae Parker, I mean, he was Miami's best receiver last year. I mean, it's just like I feel like people are sleeping on Devontae because they added Will Fuller and Jalen Waddle.
Well, but they get Will Fuller back next week.
I know. So. Devontae Parker he's still an excellent athlete.
All these guys, man, like trash man, like we said, all these guys very, very speculative ads. These are guys. If you got players at the bottom of your roster who you don't like, these are the kind of deals where you can pick them up. Don't burn too much waiver order. Certainly don't burn too much free agent auction budget on them. But you can find out, how much we would recommend if you go to rosterwatch.com. Download the Waiver Wire Cheat Sheet. At tight end, there's just a bunch of these guys, trash man, that I think are worth a look. And I didn't mess with the order, but I mean, you have Tyler Conklin too low. He played a ton. I mean, he's running as their first tight end.
You know why I had him that low though?
Why?
Well, because KJ Osborne is their tight end, basically.
Dude, KJ Osborne looks kind of good. I thought he was going to be a preseason guy. But yeah, I was watching that game. I haven't gone through Minnesota's snap counts and stuff yet. Let me just look and see. Jesus, KJ Osborne played 81% of snaps and had 9 targets. He has as many targets as Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So that's almost an interesting guy to sort of talk about. And you won't need to bid much more than 5% of your budget, $3-4 to get KJ Osborne. Those are the kinds of players we like to churn at the very bottom of the roster and just, get 1 week ahead of the rest of everybody else. But anyway, tight ends. My biggest deal is I love how you still have Troutman above Juwan Johnson. I do not think that could continue with the ex-Tennessee wide receiver, Juwan Johnson, who got 2 of Jameis Winston's – did they have 2 of Jameis's 5 touchdowns? Jameis had – I can't believe Jameis had 5 touchdowns and threw for like 100 yards or whatever it was. But what is it with Troutman? Like you just saw what everybody else saw, that he had 6 targets. He played 82% of snaps. And Juwan Johnson had 3 targets on 19%.
And Jameis Winston threw, I think 45% of his passes were to his tight ends.
Yeah. So Troutman's a guy that, if I didn't own him in some of my leagues, I would definitely be looking to pick up. Tight end is bad, but man, guys that you have on the list, Trash Man, guys like Cole Kmet, guys like Jared Cook. Some of these guys are good pickups right now. Especially if you're hurting at the tight end spot. I mentioned Jameis earlier. You talked about Jameis. Is it just, what kind of quarterback?
He looks really efficient.
What kind of quarterback are you dropping to go pick up Jameis? You're clearly not going to drop a running back or a wide receiver.
A Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Okay. So it's for Ryan Fitzpatrick owners, or maybe, I don't know, if you just got totally skunked at the position or having to start like a Carson Wentz or something, you go pick up Jameis. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as far as the defenses, I don't know what your methodology for this was. Was this just defenses you thought looked good? Did you look ahead to future matchups? What is this about?
These are defenses that I think are that, first of all, that look good, but then also I think are going to do well this week.
Yeah, I could not believe what I saw out of the Arizona Cardinals. There are going to be a lot of people coming to pick them up.
Well, Chandler Jones, man,
he just ate Taylor Lewan's lunch. I have no idea how that's one of the best left tackles in the league, and you're going to come out and just eat this dude's lunch like this? That's just unbelievable. And do you know who else made a big difference in that game? Old man JJ Watt.
Yeah,
old man JJ Watt just stuffing runs time after time. So definitely a defense that's picking up there. You can look and see the defenses that Trash Man thinks are going to be good for the waiver wire over the course of the next few weeks. Generally, those are good to pick up, a week or so in advance. The one that I would add on, Trash Man, that's not on here right now, it would be the Cleveland Browns. I've been targeting them for their week 2 matchup, and unfortunately, I don't have the matchups pulled up right now, so I don't remember who they're playing this week. But I had picked them up off of waivers out of free agency right before this Sunday's game kicked off, because I knew that nobody would want them for playing against the Chiefs, but I really like their week 2 opponent. Do you know who that is, Trash Man?
It's Texans.
Texans. Okay. So that's why I liked them. I think that'll be a good one for the Browns. So anyway, you can check out Trash Man's defenses recommendations over at RosterWatch.com. I'll tell you right off the bat, he's definitely in on the Saints, and he's definitely in on the Arizona Cardinals. All right, let's talk about some of the players who you would drop right now for some of these others. I can't believe somebody asked this in the chat, but they did. They asked about James Robinson.
That's
absolutely not. Absolutely not is the answer. Jesus, this means I need to go trade it for James Robinson everywhere I can.
Maybe. Well, Urban Meyer doesn't like him that much, but
if people are thinking about him as droppable, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
No.
I could see that. Gio, you can. It looks like you can drop him. There are too many targets in Tampa Bay.
I think you could probably drop him. What about Michael Carter?
I'm not dropping Michael Carter yet.
Nope, I'm not dropping Michael Carter yet either. What about Michael Carter? If you got to drop somebody for Eli Mitchell, are you going to drop Michael Carter? I would certainly drop a backup quarterback or a backup tight end or any of those, like something like that first.
Yeah.
And then after that,
if I absolutely had to.
Yeah. Okay. What about would you drop let's just say I'm going to look through just some. We have a league, the league 20th anniversary here. I'm just going to look through some of these teams in the league and some of the bottom barrel. All right, would you drop Zach Moss right now?
Yes.
Would you drop? What about Sony Michel?
No, I'm not dropping Sony yet. I think he's just not up to speed.
Okay. What about? Let's see. Well, that's your team. Let's see here. How about this team? Would you drop Brian Edwards?
No.
He hadn't done much of anything.
Brian Edwards for the Raiders?
What do you have? 4? Well, I guess, man, I must have fallen asleep before he got. I guess he had 4. He ended up catching 4 balls, huh?
So, yeah, and he almost had the game-winning touchdown. He was like an elbow short.
Okay. What about Darrell Williams?
No, I'm not dropping. Well, okay, Darrell Williams. I'm ambivalent about Darrell Williams. I could drop him.
How about Diami Brown after he didn't do anything, even though Curtis Samuel was out?
Again, I'm not that interested in that offense beyond Terry McLaurin and Logan right now with no Fitzpatrick.
So you would drop him?
Yeah, I could drop him.
What about, we've already discussed Trey Sermon. You don't want to.
No, we're not.
You don't want to drop Trey Sermon. You're hoping somebody else drops him, right?
Yeah.
How about Philip Lindsay?
No, I'm probably not dropping Lindsay yet.
Not even for Elijah Mitchell?
For Elijah Mitchell, yes.
Well, all right. Okay. How about Nico Collins? Only 3 targets this week. Would you drop him for one of these wide receivers?
I could drop him for one of those wide receivers.
Okay. What about Mike Gesicki? Would you drop him for one of these tight ends like a Troutman or a Jared Cook or something?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I could drop him for a Troutman or a Cook.
Would you drop Trenton Cannon after taking him as a speculative ad for the Ravens?
Yeah, I could drop Cannon. Okay.
Just a few more of these and then we will get out of here. What about Malcolm Brown for the Miami Dolphins? Only 5 attempts for 16 yards. Yes.
I mean, I felt like Gaskin was the guy. I was always in on Gaskin.
Okay, but what if you own Malcolm Brown?
You can drop him.
Okay. What about Elijah Moore? I mean,
no, you can't drop him Elijah Moore yet.
Okay. Well, he's going to get dropped in some leagues. If Elijah Moore gets dropped, would you rather pick him up over the Sterling Shepherds or the Arizona guys? No. Just under them? Would you rather pick him up instead of Tim Patrick?
No.
Okay. What about I'm sure you're going to say that it's fine to drop Boston Scott.
Yeah, Boston Scott can be dropped.
And then finally, the big one, the big decision as far as whether or not you can drop these guys. What about your favorite? I mean, literally your favorite player ever, Trash Man. The one, the only, the shitty Tyrell Williams.
Tyrell Williams can be dropped.